yesterday, and he called me today, and he says, "When are you coming up here?" I says, "I'll come by and see you in April, Dad." And he said, "All right." They had about 9 inches of snow, so I'm sure you got pelted too, didn't you?
Yeah, I actually didn't. I was in Croatia over the weekend, and I didn't see it, but I heard it was something. My parents are in Kalamazoo, and their power was out for almost 30 hours. Their house got down to 44 degrees and so forth. So.
Well, at least it didn't get under freezing and pop those pipes, huh?
Yeah, exactly. They were worried about it, that's for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the existence of God. How do you look at that question, the existence of God?
George, I used to be a just dramatically enthusiastic atheist all through the 1990s and up till about 5 years ago, until I always said, as you would expect, I will believe God exists when I have the evidence for it, the experience. Something in my experience shows me evidence for God's existence. And
you wanted hard evidence?
Yeah, I wanted more. I've been a Buddhist I'm sort of a Buddhist and a Christian at the same time, a Christian more recently, obviously, but I've been a Buddhist since the 90s, and a lot of my meditation experiences, I really was into it hardcore back in the 1990s. A lot of my meditation experiences sort of suggested that there is a creator everywhere. But I kind of said that, okay, that could be interpreted different ways. It could just be nirvana or something that's similar to it, but not necessarily. Yeah, I wanted to see that the cosmos is designed and so forth. And it seems from what I've uncovered over the last couple of years, I mean, it's me using the work of others, not that I'm the only one who uncovered it. There is evidence for the existence of God in several different forms. I mean, if you just look at the solar system, there's very clear evidence that things like the golden ratio, the mathematical ratio, is all over the cosmos. It's in our DNA. It's described by this mathematical pattern. This arrangement of items which has a mathematical map to it, which is called the golden ratio. It's a non-random mathematical arrangement. It's not something like pi, which if you have a circle, pi is just built into it. The golden ratio is not like that. It has to sort of be put into place for it to be there. It's not something that randomly pops out of nature. Now, it's interesting. We find the golden ratio built into galaxies like, M100, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. The golden ratio is found in something that looks very similar to galaxies, which is hurricanes. It's in our DNA. It's in our faces and hands and teeth and fingers, toes. It's in sunflowers and pine cones, and the famous examples are the conch shells. Now, the most interesting one of all, the one that absolutely made me fall off my chair, is one of the most recent discoveries. The golden ratio is in quantum chaos. I think it's the first pattern in quantum chaos ever discovered. This just happened like a year ago. This was discovered.
Really?
Yeah, and they found.
Why did it take so long?
Well, the quantum domain. I'm not sure exactly that question, but I think it just took so long to find any patterns at all in the quantum chaos, because quantum reality, of course, is devoid of most understandable physical laws. It's a domain of something higher is going on down at that level. So a new set of laws that we're not familiar with in our physical orientation we have, in our materialistic perspective with our senses and so forth. But the first pattern they found was straightforward, pure as can be, golden ratio. And that really got me jumping. I mean, how in the world can you have this? And these aren't just fabricated examples. I mean, I'm making approximations or something. These are all discovered by academics. I mean, the quantum chaos can only be discovered by, things in that can only be discovered by academics, because they have the instrumentation for it. So that's one thing. And this is just the beginning of it. There's all kinds of other mathematical patterns and so forth. So the question is, how can we have the same non-random mathematical patterns everywhere? It seems that, as the ancient philosopher Plato would say, there's a creator and it's a mathematical intelligence.
Well, see, that's interesting, because I'm like you, Jeff. There's no doubt in my mind at this point that there's a creator. We'll call it God. What I don't know, what I haven't been able to put together yet for myself, I mean, other people have sent me emails and books and everything else trying to give me that answer. This is an answer I think you have to find yourself. I don't understand why. I just don't. I believe it exists. I believe it's responsible for this incredible magnificence in the universe, but I just don't know why.
The concept of God is utterly mysterious. I just described Buddhist experiences I had that really pointed towards the existence of God. And now these experiences, I was so into Buddhism. I still am, but back then I was in my 20s. I didn't have anything else to do. I was just meditating constantly. And, I would have an experience of a light that's everywhere, a sort of a very ultra-energetic light, absolutely just imbued and emanating love. Now, that's very similar to Christianity. In Christianity, God is supposed to be everywhere. God is light. God is love. And this thing I would find out, this was communicating with my feelings. It was almost like it could understand the textures of my feelings. There's another tie between Buddhism and Christianity. It seems, I'm not trying to prove that point, that those are the same religion, but there are enormous similarities between the two. But yeah, it is mysterious, George, like you just said. If there's this all-loving creator behind things, why is our world such a disaster? Poverty, war.
Exactly. Jeff, stay with us. Let's get back to this point when we come right back on Coast to Coast AM. I'm George Norrie with our special guest tonight, Jeff Grupp. We're talking about his work, the telescreen, corporatism, telementation, his website, antimatterradio.com. We'll be back. And welcome back to Coast. We're with the philosopher, Jeff Grupp. I guess I could call you that, can I?
Yeah, I teach philosophy, so yes.
One of my favorite courses, and I went to University of Detroit, and I love
I'm going to be teaching philosophy there in the fall.
Oh, you're kidding. It's a great school.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what? You may be working for Dean Marski.
My boss's name is Gail. Gail Presby. That's all I know so far.
Because I graduated in 1972, so they've changed. But I'm on a committee there, and we've done some work for them. It's great campus. It originally been in a real tough area of Detroit, and they've been working on it. And but it's a great university. So yeah, good luck. Good luck if you get out there. As a matter of fact, if you're there, I'll put you in touch with a friend of mine, John Simtek, who used to write for the Detroit Free Press, who graduated from the University of Detroit, and he knows everybody out there.
Oh,
Jeff,
good.
So that would help you a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, back to God. Why? As a philosopher, have you answered that?
No, probably not. But like we were saying before the break, if you can grasp the mystery of God's existence in such a crazy world, then you would get somewhere. How can there be this omnipresent force of love, and that's can hear your thoughts and respond to your feelings and so forth? Why, if that entity is responsible for creating everything, would the cosmos be filled with such unbelievable? Our world be filled with such unbelievable hurt? And it really is. I mean, you think of all the people on Prozac, you think of all the death going on with war and starvation and so forth. This world is a big mess. I'm not trying to be pessimistic here. It's just empirical. There's big problems. I mean, it's hard to realize that sometimes America can get pretty comfortable. But, how can these two things go together? I remember in graduate school, a lot of philosophers would try to argue that God doesn't exist because there's things that aren't love in the cosmos. They would say, okay, if God is love, then and God created everything, then everything would be an emanation of God, and therefore everything would have to be imbued with that kind of love. You can't have the opposite quality come out of God. That would be like saying an all-loving being, which is only capable of love, created something that's not love. And that's a pretty strong argument. It's pretty interesting, and it gets to the essence of how we can have this mysterious scenario of part of me thinks maybe it's just real simple. Maybe it's just, we're in God's image. We're creatures that are built for ecstasy. Our physiology with the pineal gland and meditation and love and with music and so forth. We have the capacity for ecstasy. We're built for this. And maybe it's just that we are, like in the telescreen world I was discussing, we are just damaged right now, and our consciousness just needs to get back to where it was. The way Walter Cruttenden describes, we had golden ages in the past. I know you've had him on your show.
Yeah.
So maybe it's that simple, but then again, I don't want to make it too simple because it's a very mysterious thing.
Well, I've concluded for myself that God's not responsible for all the great things and all the evil things in this universe. I'm not so sure it has the ability to control that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I drop a pen, there you can just hear it drop. I mean, did I create that, or did God? Now, that's another mysterious thing. I mean, God is in the Christian tradition, God is supposed to be all-powerful. So if I can do something and God's not responsible for it, is God the origin of all things? Is God, have power? Does God have power over that event? So, a lot of people want to say, yes, God does have power over those things, but I don't know. I mean, I'm supposed to be. This is what my book Telementation gets into. I'm a creator. Okay, if, like it says in Genesis 1:26, we're in Elohim's image. So, and if God is a creator, then we are too. And this is to the extreme sense. It says in the Bible, your faith can move that mountain. That's what Jesus said. So, I mean, it should be the case that we have the ability with our essences, our souls, to radically create or destroy reality as we need to, since we are creators. So, no, that would seem that God is not responsible for all things. Understatement, really. That humans are, like I was just saying a little while ago, perhaps it is just our fault, that the world is such a mess. Maybe it is our fault and it isn't. I mean, perhaps it's just our distortion right now. Maybe the sun's magnetic field is lowered now because we know that magnetic fields applied to brains can change consciousness dramatically. Maybe we just need a stronger magnetic field in the solar system.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's go back for a moment, Jeff, to your atheist days.
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume for a moment that at that point in your life, you were correct, and that there is no God, that everything that has happened here has been random, it's been an accident, it just happened. I just can't understand that.
I could. I loved that framework. Now, I can't understand it now so much. I don't know where I'd be, but in those days, I absolutely loved the idea that there's no intelligence behind things, that everything is completely random, that there's no known divine reason for my existence.
It just happened.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very different time for me, but it's associated with fatalism in a lot of ways. Fatalism can be a very relaxing philosophy. You sort of just give up. That doesn't mean you don't go to work or something. It means you stop trying to fight with things and you just let everything happen as it happens. I mean, from a certain point of view, if you take this to an extreme, it's a very de-stressed, peaceful lifestyle. And if you're into meditation, for example, as I have been, that you may really want to seek that because you may want a really relaxed mental state. So that's very conducive to meditation. So there's lots of reasons why I was in that position, but I mainly just denied God because, well, part of me was repulsed by it because I kind of had a distasteful upbringing